March 1943. The USS Tambor is in serious trouble. She's taken damage from a depth charge attack 2 days ago. Her diving planes are jammed. She can't submerge below periscope depth, and she's 400 miles inside Japanese-controlled waters. For a submarine, this is a death sentence. The whole point of a submarine is to hide, to dive deep when enemy ships or aircraft appear, to become invisible. But the Tambor can't hide anymore. She's stuck running on the surface, a sitting duck in waters crawling with Japanese patrols. Commander Russell Kefauver has a choice to make. He can try to limp back to Pearl Harbor, a journey of over 2,000 miles through enemy territory. Or he can find somewhere to hide while his crew attempts repairs. He chooses to hide, and that decision is about to accidentally change the Pacific War. Let me show you what happened next, because this is one of those stories that proves truth is stranger than anything Hollywood could invent. Kefauver consults his charts. He's looking for an island, something uninhabited, somewhere he can surface in a protected cove while his engineers work on the diving planes. He finds what looks perfect, a small atoll that intelligence reports list as abandoned. No Japanese presence, no strategic value, just empty coral and palm trees. The Tambor approaches on the surface, running at night to reduce the risk of detection. As dawn breaks, Kefauver raises the periscope for a look at his hiding spot. What he sees makes his blood freeze. The abandoned atoll is crawling with activity. Ships in the lagoon, construction on the shore, radio towers, aircraft on what looks like a newly built runway. This isn't an empty island. This is a Japanese base, and the Tambor has just stumbled directly into the middle of it. But here's where it gets interesting. The Tambor can't dive. Running away on the surface in broad daylight would be suicide. And the Japanese haven't spotted them yet. Kefauver makes a decision that will later earn him the Navy Cross. Instead of fleeing, he stays. For the next 6 hours, the Tambor drifts at the edge of the lagoon, periscope barely above water, while the crew photographs everything they can see. Ship types, everything they can see. Aircraft models, construction patterns, radio antenna configurations, troop movements. They count 14 ships in the lagoon. They identify what looks like a seaplane base. They document the runway dimensions and estimate it can handle medium bombers. They photograph supplied dumps and fuel storage. Here's what you need to understand about why this mattered. By March 1943, American intelligence was struggling to track Japanese movements in the Central Pacific. The Japanese had established a network of island bases that allowed them to project air power across thousands of miles of ocean. But which islands? What capabilities? American commanders were essentially guessing. The information the Tambor gathered that day filled in a crucial gap. This base wasn't on any American intelligence assessment. The Japanese had built it in secret, probably over several months, and they were using it as a staging point for operations throughout the region. But the Tambor's mission wasn't over. Remember, she still couldn't dive properly, and now she had to get this intelligence back to Pearl Harbor. Kefauver waited until nightfall, then crept away from the atoll on the surface. For the next 8 days, the Tambor ran a gauntlet through Japanese waters. She traveled at night, found hidden coves to shelter during the day, and dodged at least 3 Japanese patrol aircraft that passed overhead without spotting her. The crew worked constantly on the diving planes, using spare parts, improvised tools, and techniques that would have made their instructors at submarine school wince. They eventually got the submarine capable of a crash dive to about 100 feet. Not enough for proper operations, but enough to hide briefly if absolutely necessary. On the 9th day, they were spotted. A Japanese destroyer appeared on the horizon and turned toward them. Kefauver ordered the crash dive. The Tambor groaned and protested, but she went down. The crew listened in silence as the destroyer passed overhead, pinging with sonar. But the Japanese captain apparently decided the contact was false, because no depth charges came. After 20 minutes, the destroyer moved on. The Tambor surfaced and ran for home. She reached Pearl Harbor on March 24th, her hull battered, her crew exhausted, and her intelligence haul worth more than a dozen combat patrols. Here's what happened next. The photographs and observations from the Tambor were rushed, to Pacific Fleet intelligence. Within 48 hours, Admiral Nimitz had a new picture of Japanese dispositions in the Central Pacific. The secret base wasn't secret anymore. 2 months later, American aircraft struck the base. The Japanese, believing their location was unknown, had minimal defenses prepared. The raid destroyed 11 aircraft on the ground, sank 3 transport ships, and demolished the fuel storage that supplied operations for 200 miles in every direction. But the larger significance went beyond one raid. The Tambor's discovery revealed a pattern. The Japanese weren't just defending their territory. They were actively expanding their base network, building new facilities on islands that American intelligence had written off as insignificant. This realization shaped American strategy for the rest of the Pacific War. The island-hopping campaign that would eventually lead to Japan's doorstep was built on intelligence like this. Knowing which islands mattered, which ones had airfields, which ones could project power across the shipping lanes. Every piece of that puzzle made the difference between strategic success and strategic failure. Let me tell you something that often gets lost in war stories. We celebrate the big battles, the decisive engagements, the moments when fleets clashed and empires fell. But wars are also won by accidents, by luck, by a damaged submarine that couldn't dive stumbling into exactly the right place at exactly the right time. If the Tambor hadn't taken damage in that depth charge attack, she would have continued her patrol, dived past that atoll without a second glance, and the Japanese base would have remained hidden for months longer. How many American ships would have been sunk by aircraft from that base? How many operations would have failed because the Japanese had capabilities we didn't know about? We'll never know about. That's the thing about counterfactuals. But we do know this. Commander Kefauver had every reason to run. His submarine was crippled. His crew was in danger. The smart play was to get out as fast as possible and leave the reconnaissance to someone else. Instead, he stayed. He risked his ship and his men to gather intelligence that nobody had asked him to gather. He turned a near disaster into a strategic victory. Kefauver received the Navy Cross for this patrol. The citation mentions his extraordinary heroism and outstanding courage, but it doesn't mention luck. It doesn't mention that the whole thing started because his submarine was broken in exactly the right way at exactly the right time. War is like that. Strategy matters. Training matters. Technology matters. But sometimes, what matters most is what happens when everything goes wrong. The commanders who can turn disaster into opportunity, who can see possibilities where others see only problems, those are the ones who change history. The Tambor went on to complete 13 war patrols, sinking over 30,000 tons of Japanese shipping. She survived the war and was decommissioned in 1945. Commander Kefauver rose to the rank of Rear Admiral before retiring. But none of his other patrols mattered as much as those 6 hours drifting outside a Japanese lagoon, periscope raised, camera clicking, gathering the intelligence that would help win the war. So here's my question for you. How much of military success comes down to luck versus skill? The Tambor found that base by accident. But exploiting that accident took courage and quick thinking. Where's the line between fortune and genius? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story surprised you, hit that like button and subscribe for more untold naval history from the Pacific War. Thanks for watching.